Hi, everyone. Hello. Hope everyone's having a lovely evening here in Manhattan. It was 89 degrees today, but hi, I'm Ari Conti. I'm the executive producer of our New York SheNYC Festival this summer. As I said, I'm zooming in from Manhattan on the land of the Lenape people, and I'll be introducing your class tonight. So we are SheNYC Arts, a 501c3 nonprofit fighting for gender equity on Broadway and beyond. We have 3 festivals, New York, LA, and Atlanta, all having shows that will be announced soon, I think at the end of this month. So watch out for that. Welcome to Getting Started in Film for Theater Makers. If you need transcription, you can click more at the bottom of your screen and select closed captions. If you need any help with that, please send a message to any SheNYC and we can help you with that. So a little bit more about our speakers today, who both are my fellow festival producers. We have Caitlin Hargraves and Erica Miranda. Caitlin Hargraves is an American-Chilean actor, educator, and producer based in Atlanta. Currently, Caitlin teaches acting courses as a faculty member at Emory University. And as I said, she's an executive producer of the She Atlanta Arts Festival and Cafecito Productions, a film production company whose first short film, Mi Casa, which Caitlin also stars in, is currently playing on all HBO platforms. And Erica Miranda is a Mexican-Norwegian actor and producer. Erica is the founder of Cafecito Productions and an executive producer of She ATL. Cafecito Productions film Mi Casa can be seen on all HBO platforms, so I'll have to check that out. Please welcome Caitlin and Erica.
Hi, thank you so much. This is such a cool workshop to do because there are no rules to this thing, as y'all all know, whether it's theater or film. So it's really special and important to share experiences and share what we know so everyone can make cool stuff with their friends. I'm Erica. Caitlin's above me. I don't know where in the world she is for y'all.
Beside of me here.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. Good evening.
Yeah, so a little bit more about us and kind of what we're going to dig into today. We are actors who started in the theater. I went to school for acting, BFA in acting in Chicago. That took me to New York and LA and to London for some time to do some acting stuff. And there was a crossover. Caitlin and I met, when did we meet? Like 5 years ago in Atlanta.
Yep.
We were both actors in town, both in the yoga community. And yeah, we're kindred spirits. What links us, I think, is that we are half Latina. Like Ari said, I'm half Mexican, and Caitlin.
I'm half Chilean, and Eric both kind of had this unique perspective of being raised mostly in the South, while also having these really deep cultural connections to our Latina heritage. So a bond was really easy to form from there. A fast friendship and an even faster working relationship.
Yeah, totally. And I guess why we're here is that as actors, we got kind of fed up with like the lack of control that we had with the stories that we were telling. We found ourselves often boxed in either one world or another, but not being enough for both, or not being able to tell the stories of our family and the experiences that we both had of coming from mixed cultures. So we found ourselves producing theater with She ATL to kind of advocate for storytellers who maybe have the same want and same desire to do that. And then we found ourselves finding a wider audience in film. And that is where we are today and what we're going to get into. So that's a little bit about us, that we're actors first who became producers and who became film producers. So what we want to know from you, just to kind of get the lay of the land so we can kind of guide our conversation that way, is who is in the audience tonight? Are you writers? Are you actors? Are you directors? You can just drop it in the chat and we'll kind of see who's here today. Directors, cool, theater director, awesome.
And we love multi hats. Erica and I believe, and you will see that we wear lots of different hats. So, don't feel the need to subscribe just to one title.
Yeah, we got actor, writer, producer, writer, director, early career director, playwright. Oh, we got it all. This is awesome. Okay. Well, basically, let's get started, because you guys know already so much more than you think you do, and how to get started in film. And what we're seeing right now is you're already doing so much in the theater world that you're going to be set up for super success. All right. So where do we go first, Caitlin?
Let's go with starting with what you know.
Cool.
So
Go for it.
great. So we know theater. That was really where Erica and I honed our craft as actors primarily. So starting with how to use our craft as actors felt like a logical starting point as we made this transition into film work as well. We've been actors really forever. Eric have these great stories of our elementary school plays and just kind of catching that bug and never letting go. Erica, why don't you tell us a little bit about your start in acting?
Yeah, I think so. I mentioned I went to school in Chicago, which is kind of where I learned kind of my artistic home, and where I learned what will take us into the film world that we know which is new play development. So I did a lot of new play work in Chicago, developing scripts both with during school, but then also outside of school, and really learned the process of how to use my acting lens as a detective, as an investigator of story. And that is one of the things that Caitlin and I start with. So, if it's not obvious, we did not approach filmmaking in 2020 by saying, oh, we know all the technical aspects. We know everything about every camera lens. We know how dollies work. That was not the case. We knew that we were storytellers. We knew that we knew how to tell a story, how to investigate a story, and how to work with our collaborators in order to get to the heart of the story, or to the root of the story. So, Caitlin, that's kind of similar thing for you. You had a dance background, you had other things that you can kind of bring into the movement of a piece, but.
Yeah. My training involved quite a lot of movement and devised theater. I shared that with Erica. But what interested me most was what interests me most about most acting processes, whether it's on film or on stage, is becoming a detective of the text itself. And that's something I think that theater sets you up for really well. So when we mention here in this slide, harnessing the power of theater, just certain skill sets that set you up in a different way than perhaps traditional filmmaking does, right? So as Erica mentioned, we didn't have a whole the knowledge that we now have gained and gleaned last several years, but we knew how to tell a story, and we knew how to investigate and tear it apart and put it back together and really make sure that we're at the center. So I think starting from a point you really confidently this is our strength. How do we lean into that, and how can we find the places to keep coming back to it as we discovered our weaknesses as well?
Yeah, which brings us to kind of our next sort of, Caitlin, your internet might be popping in and out. It says in the chat. That might be it. If it gets too rough, just keep us posted. Thank you, Katie. So identifying our strengths was where we started in terms of building our team and our mission. And it's something that we encourage everyone to do, because again, if you know that there's going to be things that you have to learn along the way, things that you don't know, what, like Caitlin was saying, are the things that you can come back to. So we basically settled on 3 things. The first one, as we mentioned before, was taking control of our narrative. We had this fire, this want to do something, because we weren't being offered the roles that we thought that we were capable of playing, or, even getting boxed in based on identity or ethnicity or things like that. So we said, enough of that. We're going to tell the stories that we want to tell the way that we want to tell them. The second pillar was really important to us, because it has solidified the way that we interact with our crews and the people that we collaborate with and employ. So this is to create in community with our community. The meta piece of this is to not create in a vacuum. We want to really incorporate the pieces of collaboration that the theater taught us, and bring that to the different mediums in a way that they don't really use. So more on that later, but what have we resonated with in the rehearsal process, even in the theater, that we can bring to our community, our film community. And then also a part of this is offering equitable opportunities for the people that work with us. So when you're taking a leadership position, when you're taking a producer position, you have the opportunity to set the standards that you want to see kind of ripple down. And being in the theater for long enough, working on a lot of indie films long enough, we said, we're going to pay everyone who works on our things. It will not be maybe union rates yet, but it'll definitely have that exchange, because we want to appreciate and give back to the energy and talent that all of the artists that come to the table with us are giving. And then the third was the want to share with a wider audience. So we want to tell the stories that we want to tell in a way that they haven't been seen with a wider audience. We want equitable opportunities for women and people of color behind the camera, in front of the camera, to be engaging a wider audience, to make this the norm rather than what we had been seeing in the industry on both sides. And I think it was theater producing, Caitlin, I think you probably agree, but I think it was theater producing that led us to that kind of conclusion of being like, no, there's not just in front of the camera issues, there's behind the camera, there's behind the curtain, there's, it's a lot of the technical stuff that we believe should match what the audiences end up seeing. Because again, if we go back to the collaboration, I mean, that word is never going to get tired, I think, for us, but if it starts with collaboration, it has to go all the way around from start to finish. And kind of bring that authentic flavor to it. So in that spirit, we would like for you guys to take a second and just throw out, it doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be super eloquent, but what would be a pillar of your own? We're all, it looks like, theater people, or at least artists in some capacity. So maybe it's influenced by your experience in the theater, but what is something that you think you will take into every piece of work that you make going forward? And we'll take a second. You can think about it. Or maybe it's a lesson in theater that you learned that you're like, yeah, that's going to stick. We've got telling stories and sharing messages that you care about, exploration, collaboration, communication, openness, passing the Bechdel test and telling stories that haven't been told, bringing joy into the room. Love that. Fostering a collaborative environment versus a militaristic structure of filmmaking. Oh, we'll get into that. Telling the stories of those lost to history. Beautiful. Yeah, that's really awesome. Create, oh my gosh, there's so many good ones. Create the stories, representation. Yep. Breathe, be vulnerable. Let that be playful and temporary. How do you bring that into your work? Truly collaborative, egoless environment. Consent forward, holistic practice. Human psyche. Making it accessible, making the way that you tell stories, mixing real world pain with comedy to make it accessible and educational to all. Yes, yes, I love it. So, oh, we lost Kate. Did we lose Caitlin? Oh no, we might. Oh no, you're here.
I'm back. Just some technical difficulties.
Okay, glad you're here. We just check out the chat. There's a lot of good stuff in there, just in terms of like kind of what everyone's vibe is and what drives them. And I think if I could tell you anything, I've got a bunch of sticky notes that have our pillars on my window around where I work. Write that down and make that the foundation of how you proceed, because someone said the militaristic ways of filmmaking. We will get into that a little bit later, but News alert. It's a very collaborative art firm, but it's not in the same way that we're used to in the theater, right? So how can you break down those barriers? How can you break down those walls? How can you break down like the walls of different departments and bring them together to tell a story? And I think you do that by making sure everyone understands your pillars. And we'll get into how that affects your teams and things later on a bit. But I encourage you to kind of keep digging into those pillars and making sure that you know them in and out. So let's start with an example of Mikasa. So Mikasa's a very interesting little story here because it was a happy accident. A happy accident that, and Caitlin always has to remind me this, that has been in the making for 20 plus years. Like we mentioned before, and like all of you, we've been storytelling for forever. So whether you change your medium or not, there's going to be hurdles and whatnot, but you've been doing this for quite some time. So trust that. Mikasa actually started as a 10-minute play in the theater festival here in Atlanta. And it was written by a writer who was in the SheATL festival the first year we were around. It was in 2020. And we were just really moved by how Jocelyn worked and her work ethic and just the way that she was able to communicate with her team and her actors and her director. And it brought back the memory. I had actually done Mikasa as a play in that festival years before, but it reminded me of that script, and then we made it into a movie. So we're going to use Mikasa as an example to kind of walk you through the processes of developing a film. We didn't really say it, but Caitlin and I are development producers. So in an indie world, you basically do everything. Similar to theater, you are the producer, you are the marketing agent, you are the props master until you have one. You really have your hand in a lot of different areas, but what makes us unique is, again, our strengths. So we're actors, producers, and now directors, but we aren't going to be writers. So typically our process has been that we have worked with the writers or a writer room to develop maybe some of the ideas that we have, but we're fostering other artists to work with us in that way. So that's what we did with Mikasa. We knew, is there another slide before we move on? Yeah, okay, that you take this, Caitlin.
Great, and I hope my internet is safe. Keep me honest in the chat if we're not. Okay. Great. So yeah, we knew that our characters and our world in general had to be transformed to reflect the world that we wanted to create. The play started out very different from how the ended up. It had to do with Erica and I working with the playwright and the screenwriter. So we really had quite a hands-on approach. Again, this is something that theater teaches us, right? When you're in a new play development process, you're working with a dramaturg, with a room full of actors, you're working with your collaborators, maybe even having influence from your designers. So we really take a pretty strong hand in the development process. So we knew we wanted to transform the play to reflect a new Mexican American world in the 1920s. And we also knew that we had to make it work with the camera, that we were going to be telling this story through a very different lens, quite literally. So that afforded us a lot of opportunities to dig into a lot more detail. And it also afforded us the opportunity to see, like, what is the difference of this medium of storytelling, and why does this story deserve to be a film or need to work in this medium? So it prompted us to ask quite a lot of questions about that. So how we do it, our lessons from the theater. As I mentioned, collaborations. So we gathered our people. In the theater, of course, this is going to not look too different in certain aspects from film, but you're going to want to gather designers. Now that's going to look different. They're going to be different names and titles, and we'll go through that shortly. you gather your directors. That was one of our very first collaborators that we brought on. And it was really important, again, to go back to our pillars. It was really important for Erica and I to find a Latina identifying director for this story, because we were so interested in investigating that lens. So that was one of the first collaborators we brought on, aside from Jocelyn, our playwright and scriptwriter. And you're going to bring your actors together, and everyone is going to come to work for the process. So we are process driven. Thing that theater has really honed in on us. In working on different film sets through the years, for you fellow actors, I'm sure you've all been on a set where you just jump in there and all of a sudden you're doing the thing, and what happened to rehearsal and what happened to the discussion, and oh my God, okay, I'm just showing up and doing my job. Well, while we love that, we really wanted to make sure that we were investigating into the process and really giving everybody a seat at the table to have that process. And this and collaboration are two parts of the process that are just so closely linked, because one can't happen with the other. Erica, why don't you take new plus?
Yeah, and then just really quickly to add on to that, just in terms of how like film works and why this might be different. So in film, there's different departments equal to like how the theater works. You have like your gear and electric, your G&E department, that's your lighting designer. You have your director of photography and your camera crew. That's the new piece. You have your art department and your production designer. That's kind of, you know, like the set designer. And what usually happens is the head of departments get a message and then it trickles down to their different departments. But there isn't a lot of time saved for people to come together. So just like when Caitlin was mentioning, like actors coming together for the first table read for Mikasa, our DP came to our script revisions because she wanted to understand the development process and how the script was changing and how our inspirations were affecting the story, because she, the DP, the director of photography, is essentially dictating the camera's language. So it's important for these people to kind of come into the inspiration and the heart of the piece when it's being developed, because that's how, you know, what Caitlin was saying, everyone gets woven into that thread, and there's more understanding. So that's what you might decide you want to break in terms of like the militaristic film community, bringing people in from the beginning in a way that they're not always used to. The new play process, we've talked about this a little bit before, but we're familiar with starting a story from the beginning and digging through it. And then if you watched Danielle's workshop earlier, or if you haven't, make sure you tune in, because she talks about all the different stages of a new play. We want to do the same thing with our films. Like Caitlin was saying, we don't want to miss out on that rehearsal time. We don't want to miss out on that, like, character development. We don't want to miss out on that, on finding intentions and all that with our team. So we go through the different stages, and our insular team looks like me, Caitlin, another producer, the writer, and we're working through notes. And then the next stage is bringing more actors to it. And then we have a table read and we hear all the different perspectives and what stuck out. And then sometimes, and for Mikasa right now, currently, there's a story editor who we know has the format and the shape of what we're trying to do in a longer format, and bringing her perspective to it. So there's again, it's readings, maybe not at stands, but it's readings, it's table work, it's another reading before we get to even the finished product. And that we learned in the theater, and that we have committed to using in film. I don't like budgets. Caitlin, you take this one.
Shoestring budgets. Just, I mean, I could look at all your faces right now. I could have a million tabs open on my computer. I'm sure we're all nodding our head and going, yep, I've been to theater that has operated on the shoestring budget. It is a super power that we can, especially when you're starting out in filmmaking. You know how to cut corners and make things look good, because of everything that's come before, because you've invested in the process, because you've had rehearsal. You can rely on quality performances, and maybe quality, production level. Okay, there's always a place where we have to start. So, I can remember for Mikasa, Erica and I being the hands-on kind of people we are, and truly in the 3 subsequent films we've made, there are times where we are the art department. There are times where we're carpenters. There are times where we're, lugging ladders and doing all sorts of easy things because theater has prepared us for. You step up and you put in the work that has to be done. Because you're operating on a shoestring budget.
Yeah, and I'll say,
Yeah,
oh,
go ahead.
go ahead. Well, Caitlin and I, a couple examples just to kind of solidify it in your head. For one of the films, for example, we told you that one of our pillars is paying our people, right? That's something that we stick our guns to. But we know that maybe we're not paying for like the full package. So we'll negotiate. Okay, well, we'll paint the room if you come in and build it, right? So it's that kind of trade-off, or we need 100 jams. Great. Caitlin's going to make the jams. Erica will decorate the jar, but we'll save that from our art director, so kind of like moving that around. And that's just indie filmmaking. That's just indie theater making. That's just kind of taking the role that it is. But then also another example. So we're filming our next film at the end of the month, and it's a tough location that we have. But just yesterday, Caitlin, what was your text? You were like, under limitations, we're forced to be more creative. Right now we're looking at like literally spatial limitations because we're shooting in a trailer. But that kind of metaphor is the same thing. Like, what are your boundaries and how can you get creative with your team in order to make it work? I'm literally doing the rectangle because that's what I have to make in my head right now. But
that's it. Yeah. Because when, yes, we've all seen a show in a black box and we've all been ported to a whole other world inside of that black box. Right. And that strength doesn't have to be lost in film. You will, if you want, build up to the place where you are in these fantastical, incredible sets. And yes, you're going to have all the money at your leisure, but for now, use what you've got and stretch it, because again, these are the things theater has taught you to do.
And we'll get into how Mikasa and how we did it, and we'll be very upfront. If you have questions about like budget and things like that, we're happy to. We'll give all of that to you, and the weird decisions that you make in order to make those things go further. So I think we can move into like the first part. These are the major parts of filmmaking. And we talked a little bit about how Mikasa started, but let's dig in a little bit deeper to development. So it started as a play. It started as a 10-minute play about 2 ghost sisters that had nothing to do with Mexico, that had nothing to do with being Latina, that had nothing to do with Caitlin and I's lived experiences. I think the next slide is the fun script slide, is it? Yeah. Okay. So this is like the first, I don't think we didn't leave the title of the pages in it, but I think it was like on the right is the last draft, and it was like draft 15 from the first. So it went through a lot, but that was just the process that we had. So again, like Caitlin was saying, we knew what we had to do. We knew that we wanted to take that story, which was just so beautiful and so perfect, and bring our lived experiences to it. And then we knew we had to play for the camera. So what that means is there's just going to be some technical differences. If you look to the left, we've seen this before. This is our play script. This is the way that we have read plays our entire lives. And then to the right is the script version. And so there are technical things that you might have to learn. We'll share resources with that. But this is important just because we'll talk about this later. But when you're dealing with a different medium, there is a different language. It's like a language barrier. You have to put in the time to going to help your team succeed. So when you're looking at camera and you're looking at all of those different departments. On the right, for a film side, they're going to be used to that. So investing time into learning how the technical aspects of like on screen, off screen, interior, exterior, that language makes a difference. And putting in that time to learn that language is important. There's, research screenplays. They're so available on Google. Like your favorite movies are on Google. Read them the way that we read plays. Read them to get used to what the abbreviations are. Read them for flow, and you'll know. I mean, we watch movies. Every style is different. Every movie is going to be different, but you're going to get that same kind of format and feel for it.
I'll say briefly about this particular writer, just watching her growth over the last several years. And as we we are developing Mi Casa further into what we hope will be a series. So we get the great opportunity to continue this growth of this story and with this relationship with this particular writer. And she has evolved so much in paying attention to the form, in that now she's taken it further and is thinking about the camera, thinking about the lens as she's writing, and watching that growth evolve in her work. And with this particular story, really, really exciting, because it feels like we've all learned that lesson together. Like we are all thinking about what is the audience's perspective. In theater, it's every. In film, you're getting more, you have the opportunity to get more and more specific. Which can be a really exciting and rewarding part of the process.
Yeah, and I don't think you can repeat too much. For example, so Jossie has the story. She understands. Oh wait, is that a message? Okay. Connection problems, but we're gonna make it through. We're gonna make it through. So Jossie had the story. She has just I don't think that she would hate us saying this, but she has such an affinity for language and characters. She gets characters, she gets dialogue. When we've moved into this series format, that's different even for like a screenplay. Like for just a feature writer, that's going to be a different hurdle. So again, what we did is we brought someone who had that strength, that story editor, to help her think about how to tie those invisible strings in a format that wasn't familiar. So again, I guess that's just me saying, go back to your pillars, go back to your strengths, and know when it's a good time to consult. You can't be too precious with asking for help. So,
and just last thing on this as well, because it was our first film, one of the things that really drew us to the script in general was the fact that it was location.
Oh, wait, I'm going to repeat that. Caitlin froze, I think, for everybody. Yes. Okay. What she was going to say is it's one location. So one of the things that drew us to this as our first film was that it is one location. It takes place in one room, which if you have your producer brain on says less money. There's going to be less complications with camera setups. There's going to be less complications with team moves, and it's just going to be better for your budget if everything is together. Sorry, Caitlin, come back to us soon. Oh no, let me text her really quick because she's got the slide. Sorry, guys, if you have any questions up until that part, Caitlin's back. Okay. I just took over your thought about one location. So if we want to move on to funding. So after development, you've got a story. We've gone through all the stages. You're ready to put this onto a project that's live. You gotta fund it. Mi Casa, for example, was self-funded, which is a necessary evil for our particular journey, because of like Caitlin was saying, there's shoestring budgets. You can really shoot a movie on your phone with your friends, and we are so for that. It was our particular journey that we wanted to, again, pay our crew, do our thing, really have the autonomy, take power over our narrative, control over our narrative. So that meant funding the film. We made it for $8,000. And what that looks like for us, like Caitlin said, that's one location that was donated because of Theater Connections. That was a crew and cast of about 28 total. And we knew that because we put in the work with rehearsals and we put in the work with development with our entire team, we could do it in one full shoot day, which was 12 hours. So that, again, was our necessary evil for our first one. People have done it differently, and we'll go through some of those different options. Caitlin, when we're here, while we got you, you take the next part.
Great. Yeah, when it'll go out. Also, just a little for Eden's grant talk. So as we know, funding grants can be really helpful, and Eden is a super who knows all about that, and we have definitely taken pages out of that book for that. We'll mention some resources towards the end that might help with funding as well. Yeah, pre-production. So your script is now complete and you've got to form a team. So this is a handy little infographic we have found about the crew positions and chain of command. If we think about this from the sense of theater, it's not wildly different. It's just maybe more people or different titles, really. Yeah, this is a time really to check back in with your strengths. So chances are you'll need to team up with someone who has more set film experience, or wherever you're finding your weaknesses are, or your I don't want to call them weaknesses, but your opportunities for growth are, then that's who you want to collaborate with, right? So Erica and I had this great opportunity on this first film where we were just hungry and we're like, you know what, we're going to tell people exactly what we don't, because we didn't know. And so we had a great moment where we could just be like, hey, EP, director of photography, walk me through what this means. And because she was so involved in our readings and in our rehearsals, we really got to have that collaborative exchange, right? Because we were working with a director who had both in theater and in film, we got to have conversations that allowed for that translation really easily. So Erica, anything else about this? There's quite a lot to think about this chain of command.
Yeah, it really is. And I think that especially in indie filmmaking, like that first third is all like the producer. It's all one person that really does it all. But I think it's important to note, because again, when we're talking about the structures, knowing the rules and how to break them, but you got to know the rules first. And then you want to know how you change that up a little bit. But my favorite thing about pre-production is that it's the rehearsal process. And for me, I could be in rehearsals for a play for 4 months and perform it once. So pre-production it's something that I just love. This is the time where you set the tone. You have the script, but your team gets to really dream about what it looks like, the visuals of it, the feelings of it. You talk about how all of those different departments are going to play into each other, right? You talk about the textures in art department. You talk about the colors in the camera and in art department and how they play together. You talk about, it's all the departments that we already know. It's wardrobe, it's makeup, it's how those all play effect into the whole tapestry of it all.
And what's fun about being a producer as well, especially at this level, is that you really do get to, you get to form your team and get to have all those nitty-gritty great conversations about it. So Erica and I got to sit in on conversations with our makeup artist and really get to have conversations with the makeup artist, not about like, hey, can you make us look good and follow the timeline, but what's the storytelling of these sisters, and getting to learn their craft and really investing in the artist themselves is such a rewarding part. It also takes time. Pre-production is going to be, well, next to post-production, depending your project. It's going to take quite a lot of time. Yeah. It's the development. It deserves the time and the energy to connect with each one of those artists that you're bringing into your collaborative process.
Caitlin, I just have to highlight that because I think, you know, when we're looking at the habits that different mediums have, and of course, theater has its own aches and pains, but one of the things that I think that happens in film a lot, on my experiences on sets that I've been on, is that I think it's that artistry that it's really easy to forget, especially when your budgets get bigger and you're doing all that stuff. But from the PA to the prop person, to the art director, to the gaffer, to the grip, they're all artists. They're all contributing to the piece that's being made in the same way. And they have an input that we have discovered is very necessary. And I think it became from that place of help me understand this, that was solidified. One of our favorite stories is we were on our second or third film, we were on a location scout. We filmed part of it in Florida, and our DP and gaffer were there. The gaffer is the person who lights for the DP. So the DP kind of has the way that he wants it to shoot it, the way he wants to look, and the gaffer is Edison. He was a light bulb, right? He makes it happen. And we were there all together, working out blocking and scripts. And the gaffer was giving us the golden tidbits. He was the one being like, well, if that's the intention, then the light should be coming from here and you should move this way. So we were like, yes, we will never forget that every single person on this set has a reason for being and something to contribute. And we encourage everyone to take that to heart. I think, you know, we hire based on like how someone talks to our makeup artist, you know, we literally have chosen an AD over someone else because we saw them speak to the makeup artist in a way that honored their artistry and their time. And we said, that's a pillar. She's on our team. Yeah. Yes.
So the next fun part also about pre-production is part of the communication method that you'll use with all these different collaborators. Can be really helpful to start with a pitch deck. So Erica, why don't you talk us through, this is a pitch deck for our film that's being made at the end of this month. This is kind of where you're starting the out with all of those collaborators that we just spoke about.
Yeah, so this is a pitch deck that I made with one of our other producers for Trailer Trash Magic, which, like Caitlin said, we're shooting at the end of the month. And let me just say, when I started to make this pitch, I'm directing this. So this is usually something that a director will put together, depending on how your producing structure works. You know, like Caitlin and I have mentioned, we're pretty involved in this as we're involved in the development process. So we would also have some sort of, you know, involvement in tone and vision. But essentially, I was terrified because I don't always have that technical language still. It's something that I'm learning. It's something, you know, that I've been taking classes with that we'll share with you at the end. So this was really, 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 really kind of scary for me. But then I had to go back to what I knew. I know how to tell a story. I know emotional breakdowns. I know emotional beat breakdowns. I know character, and that's where I'll take this. So a pitch deck talks about how each camera or each department will play into the story and add to that vision and add to that life. This page that we're looking at is camera design. So like the kind of textures that we want the camera to have, whether it's like super close up, like on my screen right now, this is a super close up, or Caitlin's more of a medium close up. So what kind of feel do we want? My favorite example, because I hated it, was Les Mis. We're all so close. And I was like, but where are they? We can't tell. So you'll kind of pick up on those things. And that's what you will describe to your team in the camera design. Next, this is a page from a color design. So you're talking about like, you know, what the vibe is. Is it blues? Blues, we already know, like, even if we don't know anything about color design, I say blue and that brings up an emotion for you, or that brings up a memory for you. I say greens and I think about this lush, really yummy forest, whatever that might be. It might be different for everyone, but you're just going to articulate what that means to you. There's no right or wrong answer here. This last one, is again, just like identifying your themes, the tones. And the pitch decks are just fun because this page probably didn't have to exist. We love the script and we love this picture and the themes are cool. So it just becomes a visual expression.
Yeah, and it's such a fun tool to get everyone on the same page. It's like you're not quite to the point where you can translate what's in your brain yet onto, say, a shot list, which we'll talk to you about in just a moment. But this is an opportunity for you to get all of your collaborators kind of together on the same page, makeup department to art department to camera to lighting. And you have this great document that's like, okay, this is going to serve as the first chapter in our Bible, so to speak.
Exactly. Yes. Begin to production.
Great. Just some, yeah. These are some shots, production shots from Mikasa as we continue to kind of tell that story. One thing that you'll hear us say it throughout, but it's always good. You're always coming back to those pillars, right? And as I mentioned, we wanted as much of a Latino team to tell Mikasa, and that was involved in our casting and forming of the team, and because the community is such a strong pillar for Eric. When we were gathering our team back in pre-production, we really wanted to make sure that we were honoring that, making sure that we had at least 50% women and at least 50% people of color. So why I bring that up now is just because looking back on these pictures, it always just immediately brings back of like, wow, you do all this immense work in pre-production. And for production, we had 12 hours. We had one single night. And it happened so quickly. But because we had formed these great relationships with these collaborators, we were able to film a 14-minute movie in one night, right? Because everybody was so on it. So yeah, every time I look at these pictures, I'm always reminded of just what a badass team we had and how proud I am that we always continue to go back to our pillar about who bring into the room and representing the story.
Yeah. And I think also, I mean, we kind of laugh because production technically is, in theater terms, tech and also your last performance. So it's like, how does that work? But it's because pre-production is so important. So yeah, let's show you. Oh wait, what are we doing? Oh yes, great. Okay, so this is kind of an example of your Bible in production and how pre-production kind of feeds into this. So everyone will live off of a shot list. So basically the director with their team comes with their DP specifically comes up with what you will be seeing and what you will be shooting throughout filming, pretty detailed. What equipment gets used, what the shot looks like, what you see in the shot, who's in the shot, how it moves, if it moves. And this will be this will be what everyone refers to on the day. So all that pre-production work gets wrapped up in this template. It's what the first AD uses to make the schedule. And it's what the camera department and other departments rely on in order to dress the set, to make things happen, to move in a consecutive manner. This little thing to the right is a scene breakdown. It's what I personally used for this one, but it's basically just like all the things that you can think about when you're building that shot list. So when you're imagining and envisioning what you want to see on any given frame, that's kind of what led those decisions. And again, it's what I know. And what I didn't know, I left blank and I would talk to my DP about it. Listen, I think it was kind of shocking for my DP, but the first meeting we had was an emotional beat breakdown. And he was like, what? I'm like, well, here's how I know how to go in. I know that this character's in power here and this person is not, and he was like, oh, well, then we move the camera like this. So it takes, again, that back and forth, and that, can't say it too much, knowing where you are strong and what you are strong in, and knowing how to translate that with people who have strengths in other areas. I can't tell if Caitlin's really proud of me or frozen. I think she's frozen. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna continue going. So after this, but I was really proud of it. Thanks, Danielle. Okay, so the next part is, and she's gone. The next part is post-production. So all the things, although most things get discussed and arranged in pre-production, post is where the sound happens, where editing happens, where coloring happens, and it's where everything gets tied together. And really, what we learned and have learned throughout the process of learning about films, got it, girl, she's back. Is that editing is wow, it's everything. It is that master hand that really takes that invisible string and makes it all come together. I'm spitballing here, so let's see what I missed. What's next in post?
No, I think another, I mean, as this is what makes, again, as always, theater such a strength for us as filmmakers. When we think about post-production, what I've learned and what Mikasa really taught us was that you've got to think about that final product at the very beginning. So for something that we hadn't really thought about when we went into production, when we went into pre-production and even production of Mikasa, we hadn't considered music pretty much at all. So when we got to post-production and we were like, and we get that first edit of the film, and we were like, oh my God, what have we done? What's the language of sound that comes in? And we realized, oh, this is why you bring a sound in at the very beginning of the process, right? So luckily, we learned that lesson real quick. We were able to work with an incredible composer that Erica and I have both worked in the theater world again. So we're always bringing our people to the dark side. But it's one of those things that now it's like, okay, I read a script, I immediately think, what's the music? What's the language of sound in this world? And on top of, like Erica was talking about, how can I already see this through a lens of editing? And something that our writer from Mikasa, Jossie, thinking about as she's gotten more into script development and writing, see her thinking about editing in her writing process. The more that you can think of it as a holistic and circular process, I think the better off you are as a whole. And again, thank you, theater, for always reminding us of that lesson.
Yeah, and the fun lesson that I always learned is, it seems like a small one, but like transitions, learning about how one scene moves into the next was something that like I hadn't thought would be a great thing to think about from the beginning. But when you're in post and you're in editing, you're like, well, that doesn't seem smooth. But like figuring out the language and how that is a language in film, and it's not just music transition and lights down and then you change the scene really quickly, it works differently, and there's a specific language and texture to that. Caitlin, I think I should share my screen for these videos.
I think that's a good idea. Let's do that.
Is there any other slides in post-production before I do that?
No.
Sweet. Okay. So we're going to show you the first couple minutes of Mikasa because we learned something in post, and this is not what we recommend. It's a lesson that we're teaching you now, but we had a shot that specifically kind of followed, well, you'll see, but we had a shot that was altered in post with magical post tools to make it more dynamic and more exciting, because it didn't work as it was shot. I am going to, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, we didn't test this before. So does this work for everybody? We can all see it? Okay, great.
So far, so good.
Okay.
I don't know why you're in such a mood tonight. It was one piece of furniture. Carolina, yeah. I just wish you wouldn't be so amused with yourself.
¿Y por qué no? When there's nothing else here to amuse me.
Silly games. Basta.
I they would seem silly to you, wouldn't they? You who had everything she ever wanted before. Not everyone has resigned themselves to being completamente olvidadas, forgotten.
Mira, I'm only suggesting you do something peaceful for a change. Because maybe your restlessness is to blame for our predicament.
So suddenly es mi culpa.
It's like Mama used to say, la ociosidad
Okay,
es...
pero that woman also said I had as much subtlety as a firework display. When I never showed so much as my wrist to a gentleman.
Por favor, one whiff of you and anyone could tell you're plotting to steal hearts.
Do I still smell of jasmine? Even now?
Heavily.
There are no hearts to thieve. Qué lástima.
It is impossible, I swear. Did you hear that?
He's back.
All of the faucets turning on last night, and like the bookcase falling over on its own this afternoon. And just now I saw the light flickering from outside.
It makes sense why this place was so cheap. Yeah, tonight, actually. I know. So I just have to get a few things ready before then. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Of course.
He must be talking to his mother.
How on earth could you know that?
Okay. Okay. Yes, Mom. I will. Yes. Que te quiero, Mama. Bye.
What shall I do? Shall I knock over the lamp or give the curtains a little rustle?
Be still. For once, just be still.
I would rather die. Again.
Do you mind if I turn off some of these lights?
Is he asking our permission?
Just an old house like this can be a little unforgiving on the electric bill, you know? Place 2 fingers gently on the planchette. Ask questions slowly and clearly. You die in this house.
Ay, Dios mío.
I think he wants us to answer him.
You know he can't hear us. ¿Qué haces?
Holy shit! I'm sorry, please don't stop. I just I didn't think this would actually work. I bought this thing at Target.
Okay. So that is the little bit of Mi Casa. But what is fun about that is the first shot, the first like 2 minutes was shot in a wide. And when we got to post, it was not working. So we used some things to push it in a little bit and pan a little bit because of the way that we shot it in a wide. We were able to do those things, but we used different techniques to help us figure out something that wasn't working. should we jump into the next part, or is blood next?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me pull this up. So we've got here. Also, thank you in the chat. Yes. I'll also mention we had a really big, Erica and I, we didn't talk about this, but we had a huge learning moment with Mikasa, which happened with our art department. So as you know, the Ouija board, originally we used the classic Hasbro Ouija board, which we literally did buy at Target. And then when won at a film festival and we were up for this distribution deal, we get on the call with all these awesome fancy executives and they're like, great, so do you 100% own all the images that you're showing in your film? Like, did you guys work out a deal with Hasbro? And we were like, what? That's a thing? So really great learning lesson there. And we were able to, of course, problem solve, because as theater makers, that is what we do. And we were able to find an artist who gave us permission to use their own made Ouija board. And we were able to just reshoot those particular stills or above shots of the Ouija board. So that was a huge lesson learned, and something I think Erica and I both harness a little bit of trauma from, because every film we've made since, we're like, okay,
Where's the logo? So lessons learned, they're endless, and there's not just 4, but these are just the top things that we could think of. Again, simple technical terms. It's a bit funny, but truly we had to learn what's on the left, what all these movements mean, again, in the name of learning the language of your teammates. This is how our DPs talk, so this is how we will help them talk. And they also have funny movements with their hands, and we've learned to do that as well. Collaborators, we have learned that collaborating with people who understand or are willing to try to understand our pillars are really important to us. And sometimes when you don't stick up for your beliefs, you might not mesh with someone. Again, it's not about, for us, it's not about finding people who share the same opinions and perspectives as us, but just kind of like the same moral codes. Nothing dramatic as that sounds, but literally someone as simple as like being, oh yeah, we are down to rehearse, or, oh yeah, I would love as a DP to come to some of the development conversations. That for us is important. So that's what we are after. Okay, I think Caitlin froze again. Okay. The other one is also continued education. So, again, in an effort to kind of get familiar with this new medium, there's different classes that we suggest that people take. You know, we'll tag them at the end here, but there's a lot of opportunities through the Sundance org and other different houses that really make it quite accessible for filmmakers to engage with, and we suggest that everyone does it. Also, if you haven't been on a film set, be a PA. Go to a Facebook, go to Instagram, and find your cities like filmmaking groups and PA, just to see what it's like, just to see what the networks you're working with, just to see how people do things, or what that hierarchy, how that works. That's super important. And you can't ever get enough of that. Okay, so I think what we'll do next is we are going to talk about just, again, taking those lessons and continuing the conversation and continuing your growth as a filmmaker, as an artist, we talked about how Mikasa had one location, one night of shooting. Our second project was in 2 different states, filmed over 2 consecutive weeks, about 6 days of shooting, 7 days of shooting in 2 different states. It had about 1,000 locations. In this one, we did a different funding. We crowdsourced our funding, and we got a grant for it. And that was jumping off a cliff, and maybe I don't suggest that necessarily, but it's also it's about kind of putting a foot in front of the other for the next one, and jumping off a cliff. Sometimes it'll push you into those new different and different experiences. I'm going to go ahead and share a little bit of that. Our second film, it's called Blood Orange. And again, it followed the same process that we talked about with Mikasa. It was an idea that Caitlin and I had come up with in terms of, we paired two songs. We paired a Chilean protest chant that happened, I think about in 2019, that was really popular in Chile. Paired it with the Chicks' Goodbye Earl, sent a picture of a cabin, packaged these three items to several writers and said, what do you got? We picked about two different pitches and combined them and spent about 6 months in development with the story that you are about to see. So let me see if I can pull this up. Well, not the whole thing, just a little bit of it. Okay, does that work? Am I in? I think I'm in. Okay.
She labeled the conversation skimming from the top. That heavily burden from message refused its done. Wanna do
I'll take the blood orange marmalade. Side of meringue.
Oh, wait, can we not hear this? Sorry.
Yeah, it's popping in and out a little bit, Erica. I wonder.
I think it might clear up when the talking starts, but it's like the background music that's going in and out.
Yeah,
Okay, let's keep going, and Caitlin, you can text me if that's easier.
great.
Okay.
Bang.
Oops, sorry.
How old are you? Name's Cassie. I need help. See, I took 3 buses and walked 6 miles to get here. I heard you can help me. I mean, ain't that what all this bullshit's for?
This is a legitimate business. I don't know what you heard, sweetie, but here, take some dream bars for your trouble.
Listen, my stepdad has been beating the shit out of my mom for 2.5 years now. Last night, he nearly drowned her in her bathtub. Cops are his poker buddies. So are you gonna kill him for me, or what?
Ah, shit.
Y'all live here?
What'd you expect? Listen up now. We run a tight ship. We're meticulous. No mistakes, no traces, no cops. First things first. We need proof. Prove he has to die. We're not going to kill someone just because you got pissed that your man didn't do the dishes.
So there's that. I also need a detailed schedule of your mom's man. What's his name? Parker.
Rule number 2. As far as you're concerned, this man went missing and that's all you know. As of today, we're perfect strangers.
And lastly, rule number 3. I know. What? Y'all think you're the only ones who know how to act above the law?
All right, and so that's Blood Orange, which I think we used Phenome, which is a band based in Chicago, and I think because their music, we licensed it. That might be why none of the soundtrack came through. But cool, lesson learned. So that pretty much wraps up our moment for tonight. And I guess any takeaways would be know your pillars and go make a movie because you've done theater.
Yeah, I think
questions, I think just not too long, but if there's any other questions, I know we went through quite a bit and it's a lot to take in, but happy to help where we can.
And I've got a resource page I'm going to throw up on the shared screen, but go ahead and if you've got questions, feel free, put them in the chat, shout them out, we're easy.
Yeah, awesome. So the question is, the resources page might answer, but where did you begin with learning the technical language? Sundance. The Sundance master classes were really helpful. And what that was able to do is for me personally, give me resources like actual textbooks to look into when I needed it. And then also just being on set. So being on set as I assisted a director for an Apple TV show and was just constantly writing things down in a little notepad and did not make sense of it until later.
And also ask questions, like just always be asking questions. It's especially easier when you're on a set and you can ask it in that moment. But yeah.
While we get some more questions, if there are some, we'll just kind of run through some of these. There's one in there, Caitlin, you can take that one for a second. So on the top of the resource page, Final Draft and Celtx, those are good for script writing. They'll help you with format. Freeform is a Apple app that we've used recently to kind of communicate with collaborators and kind of just, it's like a Prezi. Do you guys remember Prezi, where you just threw everything on a page and it all existed in one spot? It's kind of good to have for ideating on visuals and things, and people can just throw it in. It's kind of a one-stop shop Google Drive. Shot Designer is an app that gets used to track movements, like your blocking mapping. That's what Shot Designer is. Studio Binder is a one-stop shop. It's what your AD/your stage manager uses for scheduling. It's where you keep all your information of contact and stuff. It has a lot of, actually, for the first question, it has a lot of resources, Studio Binder does, about just technical stuff, a lot of workshops and a lot of like PDFs you can read. Student Spark is the funding platform that we used for Blood Orange. We raised about $30,000 on that platform. And they're really hands-on as well. So we back them up. Shot Deck is awesome. It is every frame of every movie you've ever thought of. And you can search by how many characters are in a frame, what the colors are, if it's outside, if it's inside, that if you need an inspiration of how to even think about visuals, Shot Deck.
Yeah, and also say all from the pitch deck we showed you, a lot of all those are Shot Deck. It's that alone, spending some time on Shot Deck is going to teach you a lot about the technical language as well.
Yes. Questions?
Okay. Yeah, there's that first one about being offered a distribution deal for our first film. So that's Mi Casa. We had an interesting journey with this. I think that does not look like the typical journey, at least in my experience with talking with fellow filmmakers. Though it happens because we are the proof of it. There's lots of different ways to reach distribution for short films. One of those ways is going to be from winning an award at a film festival. So we were really early in our festival cycle with Mi Casa, and we won an award at the second film festival that we showed at, which was really exciting, but also in a way, some taught us a whole lot of lessons and like, oh yeah, I mean, when you submit to a festival, think about what their possible awards or rewards could be, because it then made our festival circuit somewhat short with this particular film. It was a really wild ride going through that whole distribution process and learning the ins and outs of entertainment lawyers and contracts. And with those kinds of, with the festival distribution deals, they will tell you outright when you enter the festival how much money you'll be receiving in compensation for your film and for distribution rights. So that's really helpful to keep in mind that that's kind of all up front. However, what I've learned since is a lot of distribution deals will come from making festival rounds. So for example, we showed at, Mi Casa was at Palm Springs Short Fest last summer, and we met quite a lot of, there were quite a lot of distributors in attendance who are there scouting for short films, because it's a medium that a lot of people are interested, a lot of streaming services are interested in. There's entire streaming services that are dedicated to the short film form. So I hope I'm answering your question, but there's just a myriad of ways that you can achieve distribution. Erica, do you have anything to add to that?
There are, and there's, sure, you have your streaming services that we all know and love, but there's a lot of platforms that aren't. I'm going to throw a couple in the chat that, different scales of money that they will buy it for, but it also definitely helps in getting your stuff seen. I think Vimeo is starting to monetize some of their purchases. You have, I'm gonna throw these all in the chat, but there is a place for short films. And like Caitlin was saying, the festival circuit is a great way to start and get seen because people are going there to find content.
And also to projects that are, concepts for larger ideas, right? So if you're using your short film as a proof of concept for a larger project, film festivals are still going to be a great platform for you to have those kind of conversations and say, here's my 5-minute proof of concept for what actually I envision to be a 90-minute feature film.
I'm going through and trying to answer some of these in the chat here, but some of the quick responses I have, is there a list of festivals with submission processes? There are so many festivals. There are so many festivals, and it's a really quite an important thing to kind of get to know. But each journey is different based on tone, based on genre. If you have a short that you're working on or a film that you're working on, identify the audience, identify the genre, identify the tone, and then search festivals based on those things, because your rom-com shouldn't fit at the Renegade Horror Festival. So don't waste your money trying to supply to go there. But Film Freeway is a good place to start for all those festivals. Engaging, if it's worth your time, again, is what Caitlin was saying, is kind of like what your goal is for the festival. There's a lot of festivals in Film Freeway. It'll give you a breakdown of what the festival offers. If you're trying to engage and network and find other filmmakers, go to ones that offer events and panels and networking opportunities. If you just want a distribution deal and make the next best A24 movie, shoot for the stars and go to Sundance and Tribeca. But it's really going to be different kind of what your goals are with that film. And for example, if you have Blood Orange, for example, it's 27 minutes. So we know not to waste our time on the smaller ones, on the ones that only take like really short, specifically for shorts, because that's harder to program. So just kind of taking those, and it's a trial and error. There's so many ways that it could go, and there's really no right or wrong. It's just such a funky network in itself.
And I'll say the sooner that you can bring that idea into your process, the better off your process will be. So again, if you can start having those conversations about what film festivals you're targeting while you're in pre-production, the better off you'll be for thinking about, okay, well, how much money do I have for funding? And have the really honest conversation with yourself of, are we talking submitting to 50 film festivals, or are we talking about targeting a specific dozen?
Yes, exactly. I'm going to tackle a question here that says, can you suggest any classes, reading workshops, etc., for building indie film directing skills? I took a 3-month course through Sundance. They should pay me. I have just been but it was great. We met once a week for 3 hours for about 3 months, and there was homework and there was readings and there was videos, and I didn't learn everything, and I'm not done learning, but it was a really solid foundation, and they offer scholarships and things like that, and really work with what you're able to pay. So that's really nice. I think that they have some really good initiatives going on there.
There is a podcast as well that I listen to that's really helpful, and I'm going to think of the name and put it in the chat as soon as I can. There's another question here, possible odd question. Have you encountered condescension for coming over from theater and or being of art marginalized identities? If so, how have you navigated those conversations and experiences? Sure. Yeah, I think that there has been some of that to a degree, especially I can think of in like attending film festivals, which generally can be a really lovely, excellent experience, but there can be a little bit of like, oh, you don't know all the lingo yet? And let's be honest, theater has the same thing as well, right? We've all, maybe not all, but I have certainly been in a room where it's like, okay, I'm certainly being looked down on because I primarily work in regional theater or because of XYZ, right? I think what's really helpful is, again, come back to like, well, I believe in what I made, and I believe in the process that I'm making. It is radically different from what filmmaking has been used to. So you know that, and I think, again, thinking of it as a strength rather than a negative can really help reshape the conversation.
Yeah. Ditto. I think we're close to time. But if there's maybe one last one, or we'll wrap it up. No. Okay.
I did see someone asked, how do you meet executive, or any tips on finding executive producers?
Same.
Literally also help. How?
The executive producers, I think, because of the money, right? It's finding who's going to fund your things. The journey that we're on is going to the festivals, putting together pitches, asking anyone, and being prepared to get a no 5 different ways by the same person. You can find us on Instagram. We're at Cafecito Productions. I'll throw it in there for spelling. And then we're all over. Oh, beat me to it. But individually, we're all over our page anyway, so you can kind of find us through there if you want to tag us individually. But Cafecito Productions.
Hello. Thank you guys so much for doing this. I think we're gonna wrap it up now. This was awesome. Thank you guys. And we will send out the recording of this late tonight or first thing tomorrow, so that you will have it to watch in the future. So yeah, thanks for joining us. And again, as always, feel free to email back to ticketing@SheNYC Arts if you have any follow-up questions. Bye, everyone.